The night was heavy with smoke and noise. The market smelled of oil, blood, and cheap alcohol. Voices shouted from every corner. Merchants argued, buyers laughed, and slaves cried. On a wooden stage under a broken light stood a girl with iron chains around her arms. Her skin carried scars, her back was bent, and her eyes showed no hope. She was not human. Her skin was pale blue with faint silver lines glowing like weak stars. She was an alien who had been captured long ago. The auction master, a fat man with a cruel smile, raised his hand. He shouted to the crowd, "Here is the next slave. She is weak, she is useless, but still, she is alive. Who will take her?" The crowd laughed. Some threw rotten food at her. Others shouted insults. She did not cry. She had no tears left. She had been sold many times, beaten many times, each master worse than the last. She thought she knew what was coming. Another buyer, another cage, another round of pain. The auction master pulled her chain to make her stumble forward. 5 credits. Who will pay 5 credits? He asked. Nobody raised a hand. 2 credits? 1 credit? Still nobody. The crowd mocked her. She is not worth the dirt on our boots, they said. The girl closed her eyes. She thought maybe no one would buy her. Maybe they would just throw her out. Maybe she would finally die in some dark alley. Part of her wished for it. Death was kinder than chains. Then a quiet voice spoke. $10. It was not loud, but in the silence that followed, everyone heard it. The crowd turned and laughter exploded. $10? One man shouted. For that broken thing? Another laughed so hard he fell from his chair. The auction master blinked, then grinned. Sold for $10, he shouted, banging his hammer. The chains were unlocked. The girl was pushed forward, stumbling into the arms of her new owner. He was human. Tall, but not strong-looking. His clothes were simple. A jacket with worn edges, boots covered in dust. His hair was dark, his eyes calm. He looked like a man who had traveled far, but not like a cruel master. She froze, her mind confused. She waited for the slap, the chain around her neck, the harsh command, but none came. Instead, he gently took the chains from her wrists, put them aside, and whispered, "You are safe now." Her heart raced. She did not believe him. Safe was a word she had never known in her memory. Every master who smiled at first later turned into a monster. Every kind word later became a whip. She thought he was playing with her mind. The market crowd followed them as they left, still laughing. "The human wasted his money," one shouted. "She will bring him nothing but trouble," another mocked. "Maybe he likes broken pets," a third sneered. But the human ignored them. He walked slowly, letting the girl walk beside him instead of dragging her. She did not understand. Her legs shook, her throat dry. As they reached the edge of the market, she whispered in a broken voice, "Why? Why buy me?" She expected no answer, or maybe a cruel one. The man looked at her, his eyes calm but deep. "Because no one deserves chains," he said. Simple words, but they struck her like lightning. She did not reply. Her mind spun. She wanted to believe him, but fear wrapped her heart tighter than the chains had ever done. The night air outside the market was cold. The stars above looked free and endless. She lifted her head for the first time in years and saw them. It hurt to look, because freedom was something she thought she would never taste. He led her to a small ship waiting in the shadows. Not a great warship, not a rich merchant ship, just a simple traveler's vessel, old but strong. As the door opened, warm light spilled out, and she felt a strange pull inside her chest. She stepped inside slowly, still waiting for the trap, still waiting for the pain. She sat in a corner, hugging her knees, watching him as he prepared food. Her stomach twisted with hunger, but she did not reach out. Food was often used as bait. Kindness often came before cruelty. She watched with sharp, mistrusting eyes. The man placed a small bowl in front of her, warm soup, bread, and clean water. "Eat," he said softly, then walked away to give her space. Her fingers trembled. She touched the bowl. The warmth made her heart ache. She ate slowly, each bite heavy with fear, expecting him to snatch it away, expecting laughter, but nothing happened. He simply let her eat. The silence between them was strange, not heavy, not cruel, but gentle. She looked at him again, his face calm, his eyes filled with something she had never seen directed at her, not pity, not disgust, but respect. For the first time, the girl wondered if this human was different. If maybe, just maybe, her story would not end in chains. But deep inside, another voice whispered, "Do not trust, do not believe. Pain always comes, it always comes." And so she braced herself for the pain, even as a small, fragile spark of hope began to flicker inside her heart. The ship lifted into the dark sky, leaving the slave market behind. Engines hummed softly, the stars stretched outside the window like silver rivers. The girl sat in silence, her back pressed against the wall, her knees pulled to her chest. The human did not chain her, did not lock her. He simply walked to the pilot seat and steered the vessel through space, his movements calm and steady. She watched him with sharp eyes, every part of her waiting for the trick. In her past, she had known masters who pretended to be gentle at first. They offered soft words, warm food, even false smiles. But later their true faces appeared, faces filled with cruelty. She had learned never to trust the first kindness. It was always a mask. The human glanced at her once, his gaze soft but not forceful. "You do not have to be afraid," he said quietly. "You are safe here." Her heart twisted at those words. She wanted to shout, to laugh bitterly. Safe was a word for others, not for her. She had lived her life in cages, whipped for mistakes, starved for amusement. How could she be safe now, bought for just $10? She hugged her knees tighter, her voice cracked as she whispered, "Why? Why are you kind?" Her throat ached, unused to speaking freely. The man did not answer right away. He focused on the stars, then said, "Because life is not meant for chains, not for suffering. Every being deserves freedom." She did not believe him. She thought it was another trick, but something in his tone was different. It was not the empty kindness she had heard before. It was steady, almost tired, like someone who had seen too much pain in the galaxy. When the ship settled into autopilot, he moved to a small storage corner, pulled out blankets, and spread one on a bench near her. "You should rest," he said, then stepped back, giving her space. She blinked, confused. He had not ordered her to the floor. He had not forced her to kneel. Instead, he offered her warmth. She touched the blanket with shaking hands. It was soft, far softer than the rough stone floors she was used to, but fear screamed inside her mind. "This is bait. Do not trust. Pain will come." She lay down slowly, her eyes never leaving him, even as sleep pulled at her body. Her mind refused to close. Through the night, she heard the soft hum of the ship, sometimes the human's footsteps, but no whip, no chain, no cruelty, only silence. Morning in space came not with sun but with a slow change of light inside the ship. The man pressed a button, and the room filled with a gentle glow. He walked to the food corner and began preparing another meal. She sat up quickly, ready to defend herself if needed, but he only placed food on the table and gestured. "Eat if you want," he said, his voice simple, no command, no force. Her stomach ached with hunger, but her fear was stronger. She waited, thinking he would snatch it away if she touched it. After long minutes, when nothing happened, she moved closer, her hands trembling. She ate slowly, one bite at a time, watching his every move. He did not stare at her. He gave her space. He spoke only once, "You are safe here," then turned back to his controls. The words echoed in her chest like thunder. Safe. How could she believe it? Yet he repeated them with no anger, no lie in his eyes. Hours passed, the stars endless outside. The human finally spoke again. "Do you have a name?" She froze. A name? She had not heard that question in years. Slaves were not asked for names. They were given numbers or insults, she whispered softly, as if the word itself might break. "Lyora," he nodded, smiling slightly. "Lyora," he repeated. "It is a good name." The sound of her name on his lips struck her like lightning. No master had ever spoken it without mockery. No master had ever cared. For a moment she felt something warm, fragile, but she quickly buried it. She could not allow hope. Later, when the ship passed a lonely asteroid field, alarms rang. A small pirate vessel appeared on the radar. Lyora's body tensed. Fear returned. She thought the human would sell her to them, trade her for something better. But instead, he quickly locked the ship's shields, steered away, and whispered, "Do not worry. I will not let them take you." Her chest tightened. She did not understand. Why protect her? She was nothing, worth less than the chains she had worn, but he fought to keep her safe, not for profit, not for gain, but simply because he chose to. That night, as she lay under the blanket again, she could not stop her thoughts. The human had not hurt her, not even once. He had given her food, warmth, her name back. Her heart was confused, torn between fear, and something else, something she dared not name. In the quiet hum of the ship, she whispered to herself, Maybe he is different." But then she shook her head hard. "No, do not believe, do not trust. Pain will come. It always comes." And yet deep inside, a small seed had been planted, a seed of doubt against her fear, a seed of hope that perhaps this human truly meant kindness. Days passed inside the small ship. The hum of the engines became the only music. The stars outside flowed like endless rivers, and Leora sat quietly, always watching, always waiting, her heart torn between fear and curiosity. The human, whose name she learned was Daniel, never raised his voice, never struck her. He spoke softly when needed, but most of the time, he allowed silence. He did not push her, did not demand her loyalty, and that alone made her restless. One morning, Daniel placed a small device on the table. It glowed faintly, showing symbols of human language. "This will help you learn," he said, his tone calm. "If you wish to understand me better, use it." Leora stared at the device suspiciously. In the past, masters had forced her to wear shock collars, pain belts, machines that punished her for mistakes. This one looked different, but she still feared it. Seeing her hesitation, Daniel gently touched the device, showing that it caused no harm. "It is safe," he said. "No chains, no pain, only words." Something inside her shifted at those words. She had been forced to obey commands all her life, yet here he was, offering her a choice. She touched the device slowly, half expecting pain, but instead, soft lights formed letters and a gentle voice began teaching. Hours passed. Leora listened, repeating simple words. Water, food, star. Her voice was shaky, but Daniel never mocked, never grew angry. Instead, when she stumbled, he smiled lightly. "Good. Keep trying. H." As said, the sound of praise felt strange, dangerous even. It warmed her chest, but it also scared her. Praise often came before punishment, but each day that passed, no punishment came. Only patience. At night, Leora found herself whispering new words to the walls, testing their sound. She had been silent for so long that speaking felt like learning to breathe again, and when Daniel heard her, he never stopped her, only nodded gently. One evening, as the ship drifted near a glowing nebula, Daniel brought her to the window. "Do you see that?" he asked, pointing at the swirling lights. "It is called the Veil of Dawn." Leora's eyes widened. The colors danced like fire and water, blue, gold, and silver mixing together. She had seen many cages, many battlefields, but never beauty like this. Her heart ached. Tears filled her eyes before she could stop them. Daniel noticed but said nothing. He let her cry in silence, not with pity, not with questions, only quiet presence. For the first time in years, her tears felt clean, not poisoned by pain. Still, fear did not leave her. At night she whispered to herself, "Do not trust, do not believe, pain always comes." But when she remembered Daniel's calm voice, the way he gave her space, the way he let her speak her name, the walls inside her heart trembled. Days turned into weeks. Leora began to help with small tasks, carrying tools, checking wires, her hands still shaky, but Daniel thanked her each time. The word thank you felt heavy and strange. No master had ever said it to her. One day, while fixing a loose panel, her hand slipped, she dropped a tool, and she froze in terror, expecting the whip, expecting shouting. But Daniel only bent down, picked it up, and said gently, "It happens. Do not worry." Her knees shook. She whispered, You are not angry?" He shook his head. "Why would I be angry over a mistake? You are learning." The moment hit her like thunder. She realized he truly meant it. No hidden cruelty, no waiting punishment. Her chest tightened, and for the first time, she felt something dangerous. Trust. Later that night, she asked softly, "Why do you treat me like this? I am nothing. I was sold for $10. Her voice broke with shame. Daniel looked at her firmly. "You are not nothing. You are someone, a person, and $10 does not decide your worth." His words sank deep into her soul, words she had never heard before. Her masters had told her she was trash, worthless, a tool. But here was a human saying the opposite. And worse, she wanted to believe him. Trust was like fire. It could warm or burn, and she feared both. Yet she felt the warmth spreading, slowly melting the ice that had frozen her heart for so long. The next day, when Daniel offered her food, she whispered the word, "Thank you," in his language, her accent rough but clear. His eyes lit with a smile, not of mockery, but of pride. For the first time, Leora felt a fragile bond forming between them, a bond not built on chains, not built on fear, but on kindness and patience. And though fear still whispered in the shadows of her mind, a louder voice began to rise, a voice that said, maybe this human truly is different." She lay under her blanket that night, staring at the stars through the small window, her heart beating softly, and she whispered to herself, "Perhaps trust is not a lie." The ship drifted silently through the black sea of stars, its engines steady, its lights warm. Leora had begun to breathe easier, her body less tense, her eyes brighter. Every day with Daniel pulled her a little further away from the darkness of her past. But shadows are patient, and shadows always return. It began with a signal, faint at first, hidden between the static of space. Daniel noticed it on the screen, a coded message bouncing across the system. His face tightened as he read it, but he said nothing. He did not want Leora to worry. Yet she noticed the change in him, the way his eyes narrowed, the way his hands lingered on the controls longer. "What is wrong?" she asked in a quiet voice, her new words clumsy but clear. Daniel hesitated, then told her the truth. "Someone is looking for us." His voice was calm but serious. "Slavers, maybe your old masters." Leora's blood froze, her chest tightened. The shadows of memory rose like monsters inside her mind. She saw their faces, cruel and laughing. She felt the sting of whips, the weight of chains. Her body shook. "No," she whispered. They will take me back," her voice broke. "They always find me." Daniel placed a hand gently on her shoulder. "They will not take you," he said firmly. "I will not let them." But fear drowned her heart. She pulled away, curling into herself. "You do not understand," she cried. "They always win. They always take. I bring only danger. You should leave me. Let them have me. I am not worth this fight." Daniel's eyes burned with anger, not at her, but at the cruel galaxy. "No," he said sharply. "You are worth everything. They will not own you again, not while I breathe." His words struck her, heavy and strange. She wanted to believe, but the past whispered louder. The past told her chains never break. The next day, the ship entered a small trading port to gather supplies. The market there was busier, brighter than the slave pits she remembered, but still dangerous. Daniel told her to stay close, his voice calm but protective. She walked beside him, her hood low, trying to hide her face. But whispers traveled fast. Eyes followed her. Some recognized the pale blue skin, the silver lines. One trader muttered, "That is the escaped slave, the one who was worthless." Another smirked. "Her old masters will pay well for her return." Leora's hands shook. She tugged at Daniel's sleeve. "We must go," she whispered, urgent. "Ellie, they know. Daniel guided her back quickly, but it was too late. By the time they reached the ship, a group of rough figures blocked their path. Tall, armored, carrying cruel weapons, slavers. Their leader sneered, "There she is, our property. You think you can steal from us, human?" Leora's heart dropped. She wanted to collapse. Her body screamed to surrender, to make the pain quick. But Daniel stepped forward, his voice cold as steel. "She is not your property. She is free." The slavers laughed. "Free? She was bought and sold 100 times. Her chains are her fate." Their eyes glared with greed. "Step aside, human, and maybe we will let you live." But Daniel did not step aside. He raised his weapon slowly. "If you want her," he said, "you will have to go through me." Leora gasped. She wanted to stop him, to beg him not to fight for her, but the look in his eyes froze her words. It was not pity, not madness. It was a promise to protect. The standoff broke into chaos. Shots fired, lights flashed, the market exploded with screams as people ran. Daniel pulled her behind cover, returning fire with steady hands, his movements quick, trained. Leora crouched low, trembling, but something inside her stirred, watching him fight for her, watching him shield her. Her fear twisted into something new. She whispered to herself, "He fights for me." The battle ended with smoke and shouts. Daniel managed to drive the slavers back long enough to reach the ship. They ran inside, engines roared, and the vessel shot into the black sky, leaving the chaos behind. Inside the ship, Leora shook violently, tears streaming down her face. "I told you," she cried. "I am only danger. You should not fight for me. I am nothing." Daniel knelt in front of her, his voice steady. "Leora, you are not nothing. You are not danger. They are the danger, not you." She looked into his eyes, searching for the lie, but there was none. Only fire, only truth. The ship sped through the stars, but Leora's heart was still trapped in shadows. She whispered, "They will not stop. They will keep coming." Daniel's jaw tightened. "Then let them come," he said. "I will fight as many times as it takes." Her body trembled, torn between terror and hope. Her past told her chains always win, but her present showed her a human who refused to give up. For the first time she wondered, could trust stand against the shadows of the past? Could one man's love for freedom be stronger than a galaxy's cruelty? As she lay awake that night, the stars above her, the echo of battle still ringing, she did not know the answer. But deep inside, a fragile fire burned brighter than before. The stars turned into streaks of light as the ship jumped into faster travel. The hum of engines shook the walls, and Daniel sat at the controls with steady hands. Behind him, Leora sat curled under her blanket, her body trembling from the battle they had just survived. Her mind was still filled with the faces of the slavers, their cruel voices, the sound of weapons. She had thought she was free, but now she realized freedom was being hunted. Freedom came with danger. Daniel glanced back at her, his eyes calm but sharp. "They will follow," he said, his voice steady, "but we will not make it easy for them." Leora looked up, fear swimming in her silver-lined eyes. "They will never stop," she whispered. "They will chase until they take me back." Daniel shook his head firmly. "Then we keep running. We fight if we must, but they will never own you again." His words burned inside her chest, half like hope, half like pain. She wanted to believe him, but her past whispered that hope was a trap. Days passed as they drifted from system to system, never staying long in one port too. Hay hid among merchants. In another they traveled through dark asteroid belts. Sometimes Daniel fought with smugglers. Sometimes he bribed officials, always moving, always staying one step ahead. At first, Leora stayed silent, afraid of every shadow, afraid of every knock on the ship, but slowly she began to change. Daniel did not lock her away. He showed her how to use the controls, how to read the maps, how to fix the broken wires. When she held a tool in her hand, her fingers shook, but Daniel guided her gently. "Like this," he said, his hands steady on hers. "You are not weak. You can do this." The first time she repaired a wire, the small spark made her flinch, but when the light flickered back on, Daniel smiled and said, "Good job." Her heart warmed. She had never heard those words before. She repeated them softly to herself that night. "Good job." The sound was strange, but beautiful. In time, he showed her more. How to aim a blaster, how to move quietly through crowded ports, how to listen to signals. She learned slowly. But she learned, and each time she succeeded, her trust in herself grew a little. Still, fear never left. One night while Daniel slept, Leora sat awake, staring at her hands, whispering, "I am not strong. I will only bring danger." But another voice rose inside her, softer but firmer. "You are learning. You are changing." The next day, their ship was ambushed near the rings of a red planet. Slaver vessels appeared from the shadows. Their signals crackled with laughter. "You cannot run forever, human. Give us the girl." Daniel's jaw tightened. He steered the ship hard, weaving between the rings, chunks of rock spinning dangerously close. Alarms screamed. The ship shook. Leora clutched the seat, terror flooding her veins. But Daniel shouted, "Take the controls. Hold us steady." She froze. Her hands shook violently. "I cannot. I will crash." "Shush!" she cried. "Yes, you can," Daniel said firmly, his eyes burning into hers. "Trust yourself. Trust me." Her heart raced, but she reached forward, gripping the controls, her body trembling. Rocks spun all around. Slaver fire lit the sky. She wanted to let go, but Daniel's voice guided her. "Steady, left, now right. Hold it." And for the first time she felt power in her hands. The ship moved at her command. She dodged a rock, then another. The slaver shots missed. Daniel fired back, destroying one vessel. When they finally burst free of the ring field, the slavers were behind them, damaged and slowed. Leora gasped for breath, her chest rising and falling like a storm. Daniel looked at her and smiled. "You did it." She stared at her hands in shock. I did," she whispered. That night, as they drifted in silence, Daniel brought her a small piece of cloth. He tied it around her wrist. "A fighter's mark," he said softly. "Not because of the battle, but because you chose to fight. You are stronger than you believe." Her eyes filled with tears, not of pain, but of something new. Pride, fragile but real, she whispered. "Thank you." Each day after, she grew braver. In one port, she stood beside Daniel instead of hiding. In another, she carried supplies herself. She even laughed once, the sound strange and light. Daniel looked at her in surprise but said nothing, only smiled. Still, shadows lingered. The slavers were not gone. Their whispers filled the stars, and Leora knew danger would return. But for the first time in her life, she felt she was no longer only prey. She was learning to fight. She was learning to choose. And beside Daniel, she was learning to be free. As she lay awake that night, watching the stars drift by, she whispered to herself, "Maybe chains do not last forever. Maybe I can break them." And for the first time, the thought did not feel like a lie. It felt like the beginning of something greater. The ship floated in the dark silence between stars. Its hull scarred from battles, its engines weary from endless running, Leora sat near the window, staring at the endless night, her reflection pale and thin against the glass, her heart heavy with thoughts she could no longer ignore. She had grown stronger since the day she was sold. Daniel had taught her, guided her, and trusted her. She could now read human words. She could fight. She could steer a ship. Yet fear still lived inside her, whispering that it was only a matter of time before the slavers caught them. One evening, Daniel worked quietly on a broken panel, sparks flashing as he welded wires back into place. Leora approached, her voice low. "Daniel," she said, her words soft but steady. "Why do you keep fighting for me? You could leave me and be free." Daniel looked up, sweat on his brow, his eyes calm as always. Because freedom means nothing if I turn my back on someone who needs it, he answered. I will not live in a galaxy where kindness is weakness. His words struck her deeply, but fear twisted them. She thought of all the battles, all the close escapes, all the wounds he had taken because of her. Her chest ached with guilt. I bring danger, she whispered. If I leave, you will be safe. Daniel set down the tool and faced her fully. If you leave, Leora, then the slavers win, and I do not fight for safety. I fight for choice, for freedom. That night, Leora lay awake, staring at the stars, his words echoing in her chest. Freedom, choice, she whispered them like fragile treasures, yet doubt gnawed at her. What if I am too weak? What if I fail him? The answer came sooner than she expected. Alarms blared, red lights flashed. Daniel jumped to the controls. They found us, he said sharply. Slaver ships filled the radar. Bigger, faster, deadlier. They had cornered them near a barren moon. Engines roared, weapons charged. The air in the ship shook. With tension, Leora's body froze, fear clawing at her chest. Her mind screamed, run, hide, surrender. But Daniel's voice cut through the storm. Leora, I need you. He handed her a blaster. Her hands shook. I cannot, she whispered. But Daniel's eyes locked on hers, steady and fierce. Yes, you can. You are not a slave anymore. You are free. Fight with me, not for me, with me. The words lit a fire in her chest, trembling. She gripped the weapon, her silver-lined skin glowing faintly under the red lights. The battle began. Slaver ships fired in waves. Daniel steered hard, weaving through debris. Leora, shields, he shouted. She scrambled to the panel, pressing buttons, her hands trembling but focused. The shields flickered, then held. Her breath came in gasps, but she did not stop. Daniel fired back, destroying one enemy ship. The others closed in. The slavers' voices cracked over the comms, mocking. You cannot save her, human. She is ours. She belongs in chains. Leora's chest burned with rage. For the first time in her life, she screamed back, her voice raw. I am not yours. I am free. Her hands flew across the panel, redirecting power to the weapons. Daniel looked at her with surprise and pride. Together they fired. The ship shook as explosions filled the void. But the slavers were many. The ship took hit after hit. Alarms wailed. Smoke filled the air. Daniel bled from a cut on his head, yet his voice stayed calm. Leora, you have a choice. You can run, take the escape pod, save yourself. Her heart froze. This was the moment. She could flee. She could escape alone. No chains, no danger, freedom in her hands. She looked at the escape pod door, then at Daniel, his face bloodied but determined. Her mind screamed with fear, but her soul whispered another truth. He gave me my name. He gave me my worth. He gave me freedom. Tears streamed down her face. She shouted, No, I will not run. I choose to stay. I choose to fight. With a roar, she grabbed the controls beside him, steering the ship into the heart of the enemy. Line Daniel fired with her. Their movements united. The ship spun through chaos. Lasers flashed. Fire bloomed. For the first time, Leora did not feel like a burden. She felt alive, powerful, free. Together, they fought like one, driving the slavers back, their voices filled with rage, but their ships falling one by one. Finally, the last vessel exploded into fire. The silence of space returned. The ship floated, damaged but alive, smoke rising from broken panels. Daniel slumped in his seat, exhausted but smiling. You chose, he whispered, his voice weak but proud. Leora's chest heaved, tears mixed with laughter. She knelt beside him, gripping his hand. Yes, she whispered, I chose freedom, and I chose you. In that moment, she was no longer the broken girl sold for $10, no longer the chained slave. She was Leora, fighter, free, and the choice was hers. The battlefield of space was silent now. Only drifting metal and fading fire remained. Daniel's ship floated like a wounded bird, its hull scarred, its lights flickering. Inside, smoke hung in the air. The scent of burned wires filled the cabin. Leora sat beside Daniel, her hands still shaking, her chest still rising with the storm of battle. But her heart felt strangely steady. For the first time, her chains were not on her wrists. They had been broken inside her soul. Daniel coughed softly, wiping blood from his forehead. You fought well, he whispered, his voice tired but proud. You chose freedom, Leora. She looked at him with silver-lined eyes full of tears. I did not choose freedom alone, she said, her voice trembling. I chose you. Her words filled the cabin with silence, heavy but warm. Daniel met her gaze, and for a moment, the galaxy itself seemed to stop. Days passed as they repaired the ship. Together they worked, her hands no longer trembling with fear, but steady with purpose. Hen she held a tool. Daniel guided her less, trusting her more. When she spoke, her words carried strength, no longer whispers of doubt. One night, as the stars glowed outside the window, Daniel sat beside her. He handed her a small piece of metal, bent and carved into a circle. A ring from the chain they broke off you that first day, he said. I kept it. Her fingers touched it. The cold metal carried memories of pain, of humiliation. Yet in his hand it became something else, not a mark of slavery, but a memory of survival. Why give this to me? She asked softly. Daniel's voice was steady. Because it is not a chain anymore. It is proof that you are free, proof that you are stronger than them. Tears filled her eyes. She pressed the ring to her chest, whispering, I will never forget. But shadows still moved in her mind. She thought of the galaxy outside, still cruel, still filled with slavers and hunters. They will come again, she said. They will not forgive what we did. Daniel nodded, his face calm. Yes, they will come, but we will face them together. Her heart beat fast. She had never been offered together. All her life she had been alone, sold, beaten, abandoned. Now this human stood before her, not as a master, not as a savior, but as a partner. The next morning she stood before the small mirror in the cabin. She saw her reflection, pale blue skin with silver lines, scars across her arms, but her eyes were different, no longer hollow, no longer broken. She whispered to herself, I am Leora. I am free. She turned to Daniel, who watched quietly from the corner, and for the first time she smiled, not a small, fragile smile, but one full of light. Daniel's eyes widened, then he smiled too. Their journey continued across the stars, from port to port. They helped others where they could. Daniel never asked for reward, and slowly, Leora began to speak more, to laugh more, to live more. One day, on a small colony, she saw another slave market, children in chains, merchants shouting. And the sight burned her heart, but this time she did not tremble. She looked at Daniel and said, We cannot walk away. Daniel nodded, and together they acted, freeing as many as they could, fighting back the slavers. Leora stood before the cages and shouted, You are not nothing. You are not chains. You are free. Her voice carried like thunder. The rescued slaves looked at her with wide eyes, hope sparking in their faces, and in that moment, Leora knew her journey was more than survival. It was to bring freedom to others. That night, on the ship, Daniel spoke softly. Do you see now? You are more than what they made you. You are a light in this darkness. Her chest ached with warmth. She whispered, I was sold for $10, Daniel, but what you gave me is beyond price. He reached out, taking her hand gently, not as an owner, not as a rescuer, but as someone who had chosen her as much as she had chosen him. Then let us keep going, he said, not as master and slave, but as partners, as family. Her fingers tightened around his, tears sliding down her cheeks, but they were not tears of fear anymore. They were tears of love. The stars outside stretched like silver rivers, endless and open. Leora lifted her head, her chains gone, her heart free, her path clear. She was no longer the alien girl who braced for pain. She was no longer the forgotten slave worth only $10. She was Leora, a fighter, a partner, and a flame that could not be broken. Beside Daniel, she whispered to the stars, I was sold for nothing, but I found everything. And together they flew into the unknown, love stronger than chains.